Okay, guys, I'm back, and here's where we left off from Diagon Alley. Complained loudly that the seats were too small and the trains were too slow. I don't know how the Muggles managed without magic, he said as he climbed a broken-down escalator which led up to the bustling line shops. Hagrid was so huge that he parted the crowd easily. All Harry had to do was keep close behind him. As they passed the bookshops and music stores, hamburger bars and cinemas, and now looked at if there was any place that would sell a wand. It was just an ordinary street full of ordinary people. Could there really be a pile of wizard gold buried miles beneath them? Were there really shops that sold magic books and spells and broomsticks? Might this not be some joke that the Dursleys had cooked up? If Harry hadn't known that the Dursleys had no sense of humor, he might have thought so, but somehow, even though everything Hagrid had told him so far was unbelievable, Harry couldn't help but trusting him. "This is it," said Hagrid, coming to a halt. "The Leaky Cauldron. It's a famous place." It was a teeny-looking, grubby-looking pub. If Hagrid hadn't pointed it out, Harry wouldn't have noticed it was there. The people hurrying by didn't glance at all. Their eyes slid from the big bookshop on one side to the record shop on the other side, as though they couldn't see the Leaky Cauldron at all. In fact, Harry had the most peculiar feeling that he and Hagrid are the only ones that could see it. Before he could mention this, Hagrid had steered him inside. For a famous place, it was very dark and shabby. A few old women were sitting in the corner drinking teeny glasses of sherry. One of them was smoking a long pipe. A little man with a top hat was talking to an old barman who was quite bald and looked like a gummy walnut. A low buzz of chatter stopped when they walked in. Everyone seemed to know Hagrid. They waved and smiled at him, and the barman reached for a glass, saying, "The usual, Hagrid." "No, Tom, I'm on Hogwarts business. Can't," said Hagrid, clapping his great hands on Harry's shoulder and making Harry's knees buckle. "Good Lord," said the barman, peering at Harry. This, can it be?" The Leaky Cauldron had suddenly gone completely still and quiet. "Bless my soul," whispered the old barman. "Harry Potter, what an honor." He hurried from behind the bar and rushed towards Harry and seized his hand, tears in his eyes. "Welcome back, Mr. Potter, welcome back." Harry didn't know what to say. Everyone was looking at him. The old woman with the pipe was puffing on it without realizing it had gone out. Harry was beaming. Hagrid was beaming. Then there was a great scraping of chairs, and the next moment Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone in the Leaky Cauldron. "Doris Crockford, Mr. Potter, I can't believe I'm meeting you at last. So proud, Mr. Potter, I'm just so proud. I've always wanted to shake your hand. I'm all aflutter." "Delighted, Mr. Potter, I can't just tell you. Diggle, that's the name. Deglius Diggle." "I've seen you before," said Harry, as Deglius Diggle's top hat fell off in his excitement. "You bowed to me once in the shop." "He remembers," cried Deglius Diggle, looking around at everyone. "Did you hear that? He remembers me." Harry shook his hand again and again, and Doris Crockford kept coming back for more. A pale young man made his way forward very nervously. One of his eyes was twitching. "Professor Quirrell," said Hagrid. "Harry, Professor Quirrell. This will be one of your teachers at Hogwarts." "Potter," stammered Professor Quirrell, grasping Harry's hand. Can't tell you how please I am to meet you." "What sort of magic do you teach, Professor Quirrell?" "The defense against the dark arts," muttered Professor Quirrell, as though he'd rather not think about it. "Not that you need it, eh, Potter?" He laughed nervously. "You'll be getting all your equipment, I suppose. I've got to get picked up new books on vampires myself." He looked terrified at the very thought, but the others wouldn't let Professor Quirrell. Okay, let me pause for a minute. Okay, next page. Keep Harry to himself. It took almost 10 minutes to get away from them at last. Must get on. Lots to do. Come on, Harry. Doris Crockford shook Harry's hand one last time, and Hagrid led them through the bar into a small walled courtyard. There was nothing but a dustbin and a few weeds. Hagrid grinned at Harry. Told you, eh? Told you you'd be famous. Even Professor Quirrell was trembling to meet you. Is he always that nervous? Oh, yeah, poor bloke. Brilliant mind. He was fine while he was studying out of books. Then he took a year off to get some first-hand experience. They say he met vampires in the Black Forest. Then there was a nasty bit with a hag. Well, he's never been the same. Scared of the students, scared of his own subject. Now, where's my umbrella? Vampires, hags. Harry's head was swimming. Hagrid, meanwhile, was counting bricks in the wall above the dustbin. 3 up, 2 across, he muttered. Stand back, Harry. He tapped the wall 3 times with the point of his umbrella, and the brick he touched quivered. It wiggled in the middle, a small hole appeared, and then it grew wider and wider. Seconds later, they were facing an archway large enough for even Hagrid, an archway on a cobbled street which twisted and turned out of sight. Welcome, said Hagrid, to Diagon Alley. He grinned at Harry's amazement. They stepped through the archway, and Harry looked quickly over his shoulder and saw an archway shrink instantly back into a solid wall. The sun shone brightly on a stack of cauldrons outside the nearest shop, cauldrons all sizes, brass, copper, pewter, silver, self-stirring, collapsible, a sign said hanging over them. Yeah, you'll be needing one, said Hagrid, but we gotta get your money first. Harry wished he had about 8 more eyes. He turned his head in every direction as he walked up the street, trying to look at everything at once. The shops, things outside them, the people doing their shopping. A plump woman outside an apothecary was shaking her head as they passed, saying, Dragon liver, 16 sickles an ounce, they're mad. A low, soft hooting came from a dark shop saying, Ileps Owl Emporium, tawny screech, barn, brown, and snowy. Several boys about Harry's age had their noses pressed against the window with broomsticks in it. Look, Harry heard one of them say, the new Nimbus 2000, fastest ever. The shops were selling robes, selling telescopes, and strange silver instruments Harry had never seen before. Windows stacked with barrels of bat spleens and eel eyes and tottering clouds of spell books, quills, rolls of parchments, potion bottles, globes of the moon. Gringotts, said Hagrid. They reached a snowy white building which towered above all the other little shops. Standing beside its burnished bronze doors, wearing a uniform of scarlet and gold, well, yeah, that's a goblin, said Hagrid quietly as they walked up to the stone steps towards him. The goblin was about a head shorter than Harry. He was swarthy, clever-faced, with a pointed beard, and Harry noticed very long fingers and feet. He bowed as they walked inside. They were now facing a second pair of doors, silver this time, with the words graved upon them, Enter, stranger, but take heed of what awaits the sin of greed. For those who take but do not earn must pay most dearly in their turn. So if you seek beneath our floors a treasure that was never yours, thief, you have been warned, beware of finding more than treasure here. Like I said, you'd be mad to try to rob, said Hagrid. A pair of goblins bowed at them through the silver doors, and there was a vast marble hall. About 100 more goblins were sitting on high stools behind a long counter, scribbling in large ledgers, weighing coins on brass scales, examining precious stones through eyeglasses. There were too many doors to count leading off the hall, and yet more goblins were showing people in and out of these. Hagrid and Harry made it for the counter. Morning, said Hagrid to a free goblin. We've come to take some money out from Mr. Potter's safe. Have you a key, sir?" "Got it somewhere," said Hagrid, and he started emptying his pockets onto the counter, scattering a handful of moldy dog biscuits over the goblin's book of numbers. The goblin wrinkled his nose and watched Harry watch the goblin on the right, weighing a pile of rubies as big as glowing coals. "Got it," said Hagrid, holding up a teeny golden key. The goblin looked at it closely. "It seems to be in order. And I've got a letter here from Professor Dumbledore," said Hagrid, instantly throwing out his chest. "It's about you-know-who in what vault, 713. The goblin read the letter carefully. "Very well," he said, handing it back to Hagrid. "I'll have a look and take someone down to both vaults. Griphook." Griphook was another goblin. Once Hagrid had crammed all the dog biscuits back inside of his pockets, and he and Harry followed Griphook towards one of the doors leading off the hall. "That's you-know-what in the vault 713. "I can't tell you," said Hagrid mysteriously. "Very secret Hogwarts business. Dumbledore trusted me. More'n my job's worth to tell you that." Griphook held the door open for them. Harry expected more marble and was surprised. They were in a narrow stone passage lit with flaming torches. It was sloped steeply downward, and there was a little railway track on the floor. Griphook whistled, and a small cart came hurtling up the tracks towards them. They climbed in, with Hagrid with some difficulty, and they were off. At first they just hurtled through the maze of twisting passages. Harry tried to remember left, right, right, left, middle, fork, right, left, but it was impossible. The cart was rattling, seemed to know on its own where to go, because Griphook wasn't steering. Harry's eyes stung as the cold air rushed past them, but he kept them wide open. Once he thought he saw a burst of fire at the end of the passage and twisted around to see if it was a dragon, but too late. They plunged even deeper, passing an underground lake where huge stalactites and stalagmites grew from the ceiling and the floor. "I never know," Harry called to Hagrid over the noise of a cart, "what the difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite." "A stalagmite's got an M in it," said Hagrid. "And don't ask me questions right now. I think I'm going to be sick." He did look very green when the cart stopped at last beside a small door in the passage wall. Hagrid got out and leaned against the wall to stop his knees from trembling. Griphook unlocked the door. A lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped. Inside were mounds of gold coins, columns of silver, heaps of little brown newts. "It's all yours," smiled Hagrid. "All Harry's. It was incredible. The Dursleys couldn't have known about this, or they wouldn't have come for him faster than blinking. How often they have complained how much Harry cost them, and how expensive it was to keep Harry. And all along they had a small fortune belonging to him buried under London." Hagrid helped Harry pile some into a small bag. "The gold ones are called galleons," he explained. 17 silver sicklets to a galleon, and 29 newts to a stickle. "It's easy enough, right? That should be enough for a couple of terms, and we'll keep the rest safe for you." He turned to Griphook and said, 713 now, please, and can we go more slowly?" "One speed only," said Griphook. Okay.